2017. And it seems with every passing year, it's harder to get myself to say the current year correctly. I have to actually stop and think each time I get up to that point to make myself not say 2016 and we're already into May. So I'm taking the, I guess what is it, 33rd or 34th Street to work today among the tourists. Every single morning I make a bunch of choices. I choose between walking amongst the tourists down here by the Empire State Building's base, or walking among all the people who are in the market for flowers and wholesale perfume on the 28th Street walk across the city. And I also make choices between shooting a YouTube video like this and podcasting, mostly on the iTunes channel. I've found sometimes when people search for Python, my optimization varies there. It's not my particular SEO area of expertise or forte, but just as I maintain a YouTube channel to keep my foot in the arena of video optimization and YouTube SEO in particular, I keep a podcasting channel going in the iTunes store. Just have something that comes up in iTunes, if not an app. By this time in my life, I would have imagined I'd have jumped onto the mobile bandwagon, and my heart settled on Python before it settled on mobile app development, because once upon a time I felt very powerful on VBScript under active server page, running on IIS, Microsoft Internet Information Server, running on some form of Windows Server. And that's what I knew, and that's what I was comfortable with. I would add to that picture Microsoft SQL Server and SQL in general, and RDBMS, Relational Database Management Systems. And I built one of my very all-time favorite things. In fact, if you look at the Amiga computer, and that was like a technology that I just really loved, you know, a perfect storm. The age I was at, impressionability, the power it offered, the secret weapon feeling, which I always really enjoy in technology. Being on the bleeding edge is a nice place to be, because the bleeding edge holds superpowers, benefits, advantages over other people in the same field who are using the same old tired tools as everyone else, no matter how appealing and how on autopilot and lack of thinking daily grind you can just settle into when you use the proprietary vendor-supported tools that give you power. So when your superpowers are derived from vendor stuff, proprietary license enforced stuff, you have some very big critical dependencies in your life, and the carpet can be pulled out from under you. And that happened to me many times in tech, let me tell you. There was the time when I chose the Coleco Atom over the Commodore 64. I could have put up a fuss over that around when I was 12, and my dad decided on the Coleco Atom. That was my dad's decision for me, so keep in mind there's lessons about old school. I was born in 1970, the same year for the most part that Unix was invented, and not long after that the TCP/IP protocol, which had a natural home on Unix, which enabled ARPANET, the military version of the internet that came before the public internet we know today. And so I'm about the same age as Unix, which is almost the same thing as Linux as far as the skill sets that one develops to be able to operate in that environment, which is the basic technological plumbing of most of the world today. Almost everything that doesn't have a special, highly customized one-off microprocessor to run it is going to be using some form of a general computing system, a general processor, a tiny little micro or nano computer to control it, from smartwatches to phones to, everything else, servers. And, these things are generally going to be running Linux or Unix. And everything's coming around. The final holdouts are finally jumping on board. Microsoft is now distributing or making available the actual Ubuntu Linux kernel as part of Windows so that it can partake in this tech revolution going on. And so let's see, I went down this path starting out talking about the choices I make every morning. So I have some choice branch trees that have taken me down to weird, interesting little crevices in life and technology. It's carpet being pulled out from under me, the Coleco Atom, the Amiga, and actually more Commodore in general going away. Pretty devastating, big reset button in my life. And then settling on Microsoft technology, what you would think would be the safe harbor, right? And then active server page goes away, all my VB script where I've started to fall in love again with technology becomes essentially non-supported, dead end. It's not where the excitement is. It's certainly not premier resume material anymore. So I have to look around again. And I'm in, full alert, fool me 3 times, I must be stupid mode, and made a study of it and picked up a bunch of technologies preliminarily. Tried doing the Ruby on Rails thing, which I could never really get into because I had created a generalized joyful framework of my own years prior on VB script, and I knew what I was looking for, and Ruby on Rails wasn't it. So I was like, okay, let me just try Ruby without Rails. Forced object-orientedness, lack of client libraries for every special thing, API, data source that you want to connect to. And before long, Python had come up as a suggestion from various people over the years. Enough times I'm like, okay, finally, I'll look at Python, stop bugging me. I looked at Python, got over the white space thing, and never came back. So, maybe I got it right. It's a big maybe. I'm not saying that Python is the be-all, end-all, but it is certainly the be-all. You might layer other technologies in, so it certainly doesn't end all. You might want to take up things like C++ to make highly optimized, spot optimized in C areas of your Python project, which all the source code and everything can be part of the exact same repo or possibly GitHub repo as the Python part of it. So it's just, all the power of Python plus all the power of other languages when you need it. So hopefully this is the first non-dead end, the first non-carpet being pulled out from beneath me, technology that I've taken up in a long while. And it's been, 7 years, I guess, since I first accepted trying to use Python for my next project. And my appreciation for it goes up with the same linear growth pattern that you see in Python popularity and adoption over the years, which is a unabated linear increase, which according to some of the data monitoring, reporting, analytics systems out there, has Python on a trajectory to overtake Java as the #1 most popular language in the world, based on an interest, projects, active projects using it, queries in Google, and all the other metrics you might think to use to measure the popularity of a language. There's plenty of things that skew data because JavaScript is always going to look like the most popular, because no matter what you do, you're going to have to choose a JavaScript library for the user interface, the browser-based user interface components of your project. Because no matter what you're doing, if you're building something that's scheduled, if you're building something that's a script, every once in a while you might want to interact with a web browser like Jupyter Notebook itself does. Wow, there's so many directions I can go with this talk. But as I back out of this nested tree of subreferences I made for myself, I remind myself that at the end of the day, we make choices. More precisely, at the beginning of each day, we make choices. And one of them for me is whether to do this on YouTube or do this on podcasting. And, quite frankly, I like podcasting a bit more, even though there's tons less information in the podcast version of this. You would only ever be able to imagine what's going on around me. If I have the nerve and the guts to do this, walking down the streets of New York City having a talk like this, then why should I deprive my audience of all this stuff going on around me? And at the end of the day, I may end up following the numbers. My YouTube views are usually in the area of 40 to 100 if I'm lucky. A video where about the Linux shell. That was a popular one. I made the headline, when I say Linux, you say terminal. Linux. And that has been climbing up. It's at about 400 views or something. I guess I hit some sort of fundamental, but this is why I keep these channels, different publishing channels going. I need to see and notice these things and be able to have educated opinions on each of these topics when they come up in discussion. And one of the important things I've noticed is that my podcasts can go up to 1,000 downloads. Now, I know those are misleading numbers because of the 1,000 automated podcasting software downloads that may occur on any of my podcasts. I only might get, say, 100 actual listens, and that metrics doesn't go back to me. It probably only goes back to Apple or whoever's controlling the podcasting software, or I should say the podcast, not podcasting, because there's now software like Opinion app that I'm using right now to do this on my phone when I'm not YouTubing, and there's also listening to podcasts, and that's mostly the the Apple one, because if you take all other podcasts, audiences and put it together, it probably barely even equals the amount of people who consume their podcasting media on the Apple iCast or the Apple podcast software using iTunes to find podcasts. So the 80-20 rule for podcast optimization, or even the Apple iTunes Store optimization, is to have something, one foot in the game, one foot in that arena. And hopefully, this is one of the points I actually wanted to make at the beginning of the video, but for those who made it this far, congratulations. I will tell you that this is hopefully the last video I'm shooting or podcast I'm recording using either the iPhone's built-in microphone, like I'm actually doing right now, or the Apple headphones, which my last pair broke and got lost, so I've been putting off that $30 purchase thinking, isn't there a better way? Sure, it's nice to talk on the phone like that and stuff, but that's all just part of the Apple golden handcuffs of their closed ecosystem. Can I find a better way to record audio on these commutes, these crosstown commutes in New York City, Midtown, that I do, then and have a little bit higher audio production value? I guess the term people banter about is production value. My production value is crap. Well, more accurately, it's default iPhone, and it is, background noise in New York City. It's just part of what this is. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't have this commute, and I'd be sharing these thoughts with precisely myself, which actually I want to point out is a valid thing. One of the lessons I'm teaching to my daughter is that Storytelling is one of the most important things in life, the ability to do it well, to construct the stories, to relate the stories, and to generally win people over to your cause, your way of thinking via stories. And, to do this, you can't really be shy. You have to be bold. You have to be okay with when people disagree with you or don't like your opinions or attack you over your production quality. So, instead of closing my ears to criticism, I'm an SEO. I'm in the search industry, right? So I turn to Google and I start looking for what my exact problem is with these recordings on my walk. And the answer is, of course, all this pesky background noise. It's because of omnidirectional microphones. It's better than omnidirectional in the case of the iPhone. I think it is designed to pick up the sound that's in front of it and to reduce the background noise. I'm not exactly sure, but it's used a lot for, video conferencing type stuff. So one would expect all the standard tricks to have a sweet spot for picking up audio. So I do get the advantage of that. It's not the worst in the world, and it's certainly getting better with each generation of phone. But everything could benefit. The quality level could come up quite a bit across the board, both my YouTube videos and my podcasting, if I just got myself a unidirectional lapel mic. I wear headphones anyway because I'm too lazy to take them out because I switch between listening to my Audible books. I'm in the middle of the Off to Be the Wizard series. Really good stuff. I forget, Scott Meyer or something like that. I forget. Well, anyway, it's a really fun take on sci-fi and technology and, existentialism and stuff. So, humorous read. It makes me think of The Hitchhiker's Guide or the Myth series I had once read. Just really tongue-in-cheek magic and wizardry and technology too sprinkled in. Computer programming, they use a shell to control their magic. So it really strikes a chord with me. And there was a reference to the Commodore 64X in there, so it really struck a chord with me. Although they did not name the 64X by name, they said a modern company that started building the Commodore 64 retro computer, putting modern PC parts inside. So it was really awesome because that has a special connection to me, and I thought I was the only one who knew it happened. And it got into a book and pop culture in its own little way. So anyway, decisions in life every morning. My new decision will usually be podcasting. For those of you who follow me mostly here on YouTube, go to the iTunes store or whatever. I'm probably in a bunch of different podcast directories. Search on Python and look for the Python Experience. There you will find my blue circle, inverted P for Python. And subscribe, follow along. I'll appreciate any 5 stars or whatever you give me. Someone described my style as, shoot from the hip and bold. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. 0 editing, just don't make mistakes. And life's too short for, being my own production team, which is what I would have to do by doing this stuff on the side, and it's not worth it. So 80-20 rule, keep the foot in the game, just do each thing quick, get it done with, move on. So I'm getting inside because it's getting hot here in New York City in the morning and coming into summer. So thanks for joining me. Hope to talk to you soon, and you make the right decisions too each day.